Hey, welcome everybody to an edition of the one-on-one interviews with Nicolas Dolenc. Currently, he's the human catalyst at Smartly. Smartly is a trailblazing company, startup company here in Finland that has been making 2.1 billion coming through their system in ad revenue last year. Not only that, Nicky has done some amazing things in his past with Slush, where he was the president. He has been listed as 40 under 40 with the Swedish-speaking Finns here in Finland. We'll get him to explain all that stuff, as well as his basketball playing days in all the junior national teams, and also his fun party company days. At least that has led him to quite different things. So Nicky, we call him Nicky because we go way back from basketball playing days. So tell us a bit about yourself. What's your background to begin with?
My background or family background, so I'm as a Finn as they can be, basically on the outside. So I have the privilege to be categorized as a Swedish-speaking Finn, born in Finland. However, my father is Brazilian-born, and he moved here 30 years ago, basically as what some people might call as a souvenir. So when you find a significant other that's a foreigner and you come back here, they are souvenirs.
I didn't know
there's apparently a term for this. I thought it was funny, so I'll share it here.
Right.
And he's been here ever since. So I talk Portuguese with him, so it's basically my second language. Right. My first language is Swedish. Then because my parents talked English with each other, I kind of picked up on that when I was very young. Right. And then Finnish I picked up on the yard. So before I was 5, I spoke 4 languages. Right. And still today, whenever we have a family dinner, we speak more or less 4 languages.
So in our home, we speak 3 languages growing up, and I thought that was a lot. So how do you manage as a family with the 4 languages?
Involved, right. But you get around it. There's the only language we can speak where everybody kind of can follow. Well, today it's Swedish. Like my wife, she understands it, but it's hard to participate. So we kind of revert back to English mostly. But then whenever we have one-on-one discussions, it's on some language. I was just
going to mention, how does that affect, the extended family? You guys going there?
No, we have pretty the extended family is pretty limited.
Right.
So we don't really. I have my grandmother still lives in Brazil, as well as my uncles. Right. We visit there, or try to visit. We see each other every other year, in person. But technology has helped a bit. Yeah. True. Bring the family closer. Yeah. And then from my wife's side, of course, then it's fully Finnish, and she has 2 sisters, and that's pretty tightly knit family. Right.
Cool. Before we jump onto something else, I would actually like to ask, from your dad's perspective, what has it been like? Has his cultural background, for example, affected the way you were brought up, or?
Well, I definitely think so. I mean, he came from a very rough childhood. So the family was very poor in Brazil, and they were also, my grandparents are not Brazilian born. Wow. So my grandmother from my dad's side was American. She came to Brazil when she was 8. And my granddad fled the Second World War from Yugoslavia. Right. And at the time, the only country that took people from communist countries was Brazil. Wow. This is, for example, why Brazilians still don't need visas going to Russia.
Right.
So kind of, I'm a son of an immigrant who was son of an immigrant.
Right.
The language they spoke at home was English.
Right.
Even though I speak Brazilian with him. Yeah. But he was the family speaks English, and both my grandparents were private English teachers, and my grandma still actually works as a private English teacher.
This is very interesting. I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, no, that's where the surname comes from. So Dolenc is a very common Croatian surname.
Right.
It's
Dolenc,
pronounced
yeah.
like Dolenc
Yeah.
in the region. It has like a hyphen on top of the C, but
Right.
granddad dropped that when he moved.
Right. But in the beginning, you mentioned that like you are as Finn as they come. And then you talk about all this background behind you. Do you feel a connection more to one part, or is this like the uniqueness of you that you're
No, so I don't feel I belong to any, like, I have a hard time, like, I have an easy time relating to anybody with diverse backgrounds.
Right.
And like,
Right.
in my mind, we all have biases, but
Right.
I, for example, inherently have never placed bias on what language you speak, like
Right.
what you look like,
Right.
what your background is.
Right.
My biases are among characters and how you communicate as an individual.
Right.
But I've always, like, when I was younger, I always hanged out with a crowd that was very different from what you would think I would be hanging out. So, like, I was born a white male in Finland, so
Right.
like, of course, that brings some privileges, and the perception people have of me is that I'm as Finn as they come.
Right.
But then, like, when I go through my background,
Yeah.
it's like, it's a mix of a lot of things.
Right. Right.
So I don't feel I belong in any particular place, but I feel lucky to be born here.
Yeah.
There's no place like Helsinki, and it still feels like it's like my country, and I am a Finn, even though I have all these backgrounds.
Yeah. I love that explanation, and the purpose of the show, of course, is bring to the fore these two words of success and diversity, and how they interchange or interlink. So I think that kind of embodies, what we're talking about here. That not only do you have from a looking at you from this outside perspective, people might think of you as, or at least put you in a box, but then that might be the wrong box in that perspective. So that is pretty cool, actually, to be able to see and get to know you a little bit more in that sense. But let's dig a little bit deeper before we come into the other very interesting questions. I would like to know, what has your impact, basketball, what impact has basketball had in your life? Because I know that you have been through all the junior national teams, which is a pretty big deal. If you think about it, out of all the kids, that you are selected to be part of the national teams throughout your youth career. What kind of impact does that have on you, and what was that like growing up?
Yeah, so I mean, basketball plays a big role in who I kind of become. So the story, I actually only started basketball when I was 13. Yeah. So when I was younger, I think I first started with football and tennis. Right. And then these two I was doing at the same time. And then there was I've always been very interested in sports, and I've been like semi-good at anything I got it into. Right. Favorite subject in school, like most young boys. So nothing abnormal there, but I kind of didn't want to continue with football. I was very young, say I think I was like 10 or something when it was like I didn't want to go there because I didn't feel really welcome in the team. Really? I was the Swedish-speaking Finn, the only one, and I think I also was a year younger than everybody else. Right. So I was. I have a lot of memories of being bullied. Oh, really? Right. So I didn't want to continue there. So I went into like more individual sports. I continued with tennis, and then I started golf. And then did a lot of sports for school and school teams. But when I was 13, my golf teacher actually was like, "You have a lot of height. Have you ever played basketball?" Right. So I was like, "Well, I should probably go or whatnot." Right. Out of all the sports, golf teacher is the one who pushes you to basketball. I guess he was like subtly trying to say, like, don't try to golf. Right. But before you even continue, I want to get back to your bullying days, because I mean, if you think about it, at least knowing a little bit about the Finnish society, the Swedish-speaking Finns in this country are kind of held to
at least they are considered as privileged group.
Yes.
And it's difficult for some people perhaps to think, to associate them with bullying.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's bullying. I was just different.
Right.
I was just different. I didn't have the same background.
Right. Was it in the language, how you were speaking Finnish, or how you looked, or was it?
I think it was like they always will pick somebody to pick on, and that was just the easy target, I guess, because I was younger and didn't fight,
Right.
push back, and then
Right.
I wasn't like exceptionally good at football, so it wasn't like I was actually contributing on in the game other than whenever there was a corner kick, I had all the height.
Right.
So that was the only thing I was basically good at.
Right.
So I was like an easy plucking, if you will.
Okay.
But then when it comes to the Swedish-speaking Finns, yes, they are privileged, held the hard regard, but they are very tight-knit community.
Right.
So like, yes, they have a lot of rights and they're giving it, but they kind of use what I was always now at a later age when I got older.
Yeah.
Kind of what I am bothered about is like the group has a lot of privilege, but how much do they use that privilege to help others?
Right.
For example, in the fact that it's easier to learn Swedish than it is to learn Finnish, or if somebody foreign wants to integrate, how easy it is to be a part of the duck pond, which they kind of or they themselves call. So like if you're part of that community, your parents went to university together, you know everybody, you know the families, kind of. But then coming as an outsider into that group, they're not very inclusive. Right? So the group, or that kind of the way I've always felt is there's enough of such people for them to be a very kind of tight-knit, separate group.
Right.
And I never felt part of that. For example, in high school, I didn't hang out with the people from school. I was hanging out with a couple of girls who didn't want to hang out with these people.
Okay.
Or then I hanged out with the basketball players.
Right.
And it even went as far in high school as at some point, like all the foreign players used to come with me and eat at school.
Really?
And it took like 6 months for any teacher to actually kind of have the courage to come and say, like, these are not students in this school, and there's like these big black dudes.
Interesting.
So after every morning practice, me and the Americans who would used to come to our school.
All right. Now I get it. Free lunch. Very interesting. But take me back now to your basketball days. You were explaining how you just started going back to or going to basketball from your golf teacher.
So I got there and I felt very welcome.
Right.
They were all, of course, Finns and so on. And the guys, it was S-ball basket team, so the guys are still good friends from those times.
Very nice.
And that's where I kind of felt welcome. And I've always, kind of reflecting back, it's easy to say I've always been like a team player.
Right.
Like I don't like to achieve things that only I have achieved.
Right.
Like, so most of my recognition comes from like doing something as a team.
Yeah.
And then I'm like prone to do the stuff a team needs to do, but nobody wants to do.
Right.
So I was a super athletic person at the time. I have a bit of extra belly.
Retirement belly,
But I was known for the athleticism and I had a lot of attitude. So kind of a Dennis Rodman, if you will. That type of role. So I wasn't a scorer. I'm still not a scorer. But I had an exceptional work ethic. And then I was fine with any sort of smaller role that needed to be played. And that basically, that combined with the perceived work ethic from coaches was the reason I was with all national teams. And then combine it with just the external factors of our age group didn't have a lot of tall players. So I had some opportunities there. But I was always, like, regardless, I never had a big role, but I always had that one role every team needs to have, which is like garbage player.
That's fantastic because perhaps we can segue through these other roles that you've had later on in your career. But before even that, I can completely relate because I started playing basketball very much later, around 18, organized basketball around 18 years. And I realized that all these people have so much more experience playing the sport, right? And I had to pick one or two things that they're not doing well, that people didn't want to do, which was running the floor really hard, rebounding, blocking shots. I had to do that better than everybody else in the team. That's the only way I can get in. And that served me quite well. If you think from your basketball, what you've learned from your basketball, take me through how you progressed into your next roles.
Well, basketball. So all I wanted to do when I was 16 at the time was like I wanted to play basketball.
Right.
I had this big fight with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Never want to do anything you're doing. So my dad has a professor's degree within the field of computer science, and my mother is in investment banking and financial risks and stuff. So like desk jobs. That was what I was referring to.
Right.
And very teenage rebellious as I was, kind of, that's what I told them, and then that's where I played the most basketball. And then at 17, I was training with the men's team, and I kind of thought that this is what I wanted to do. Right?
Yeah.
Then I hit 20, and I busted my knee.
Yeah.
They told me I couldn't really play anymore. It wasn't true. It's just like I tore my meniscus and it wouldn't be the same.
Right.
So I can't train intense periods without like actually getting it sore and inflamed.
Right.
However, it's not something with today's medical science.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually fix.
Right.
But that forced me to think like, so why am I trained like 2 hours, 2 to 3 times a day, 6 days a week, 11 months a year?
Right.
I've done this now for like 8 years. Like why?
Right.
And then I need to do this another 8 years. Like
Exactly.
I just
At least,
got something, and it was like almost getting paid.
Right.
And then I have a younger brother who at the time was getting better deals than me as well. Offers. So it's like there's always going to be somebody younger who's probably hungrier than me. So I kind of realized, looking back now, I don't think it was explicit at the time, but I realized I have a passion for basketball, and I still do.
Right.
But my purpose wasn't to be the best basketballer.
Right.
It was. So I basically kind of thought I needed to get a degree anyway, so I'll put basketball on the side. I can still practice. So I went back to my original club, and they were training 3rd division with the men's team. Were a few other guys who came back who played like top league. Right. And we took it from 3rd division to 1st division in like 3 or 4 years on the side of doing everything I was doing during. We get into those part as well, but I was like still 3 times practice a week, and then some extra exercise going to the gym. So I kind of kept it up. Right. I also, when I busted my knee, I knew I was going to get into Aalto University into computer science. Yeah. And then my dad calls me on my first day. He goes like, remember that fight we had when you were 16? Yeah. And he told me like, you will never do anything. He was like, yeah, you're studying exactly the same thing as me in the university. I have also taught that. Right.
What do you think the lesson from that was?
Well, I mean, like my dad just enjoyed being right.
Right.
And I kind of, it wasn't as much as following my parents' footsteps or anything. Yeah. For me, the way I ended up in computer science, actually had my first choice would have been a production economy, which is one of the hardest things to get into. You need like straight A's to get there. Right. Not like I was a straight A student until like gymnasium that's here in Finland. Yeah. Just because everything came so easy. Yeah. I never actually had to do a lot of work to get good grades. Gotcha. And I also apparently gave a good perception towards my teachers as being like a very kind of kind kid. I don't know how I don't think I was like doing it intentionally or anything. Right. But I think that's kind of something reflecting back as an older, kind of the integrity maybe. Yeah. Kind of always being honest and all of these things, even though I might do some very non-okay stuff, or I might cut corners, or I might tell a few lies to get my way around. But like retrospectively, I've always been very open about why I do the things I do. So I think that has come, like, taken me a long way. That has always been there, and only reflecting back have I actually maybe seen these kind of
connecting pieces.
Connecting some bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So I got in because I put computer science the year before had been the easiest thing to get into at the time. So I had that as a second option, so that I would just get into university. Yeah. And thirdly, like anything in the future, job market on computer science might make sense. Yeah,
exactly.
Though when I got in, it was not much studying.
Yeah.
It was a lot of partying.
So this was the birth of the company.
Yeah,
the events company.
More or less. Right. So what happened was year partying, not getting much studies done. Started running out of money, and then I was also asked. So my student union, the Swedish-speaking Finns who are in the old Aalto engineering, so TKK, they have like a student union for Swedish-speaking Finns studying engineering field, whatever. And they run a restaurant and a party business. Right. So I got into that because I like parties, so I thought I would make money instead of waste it at parties.
Right.
So at this time I hadn't set up any company, but I was first, I became the CEO of that company as well. It's a pure audit thing. They always choose a new one basically every year. Right. But kind of got into like what it takes to run a company, and especially in the
events business.
So between the years 2012 and 13, I think it was, I did more than 100 parties, everything from weddings to company Christmas parties to student parties to like dinners to bigger events, smaller events. So I was doing that. I kind of enjoyed, I think, the pressure of it. Okay. And then the fact that you get to socialize with a lot of people.
What's the pressure in that?
So I mean, it's studied every year. They do the most stressful jobs you can have.
All right.
There's like a global study.
Events planning.
Sorry?
Events planning.
So it goes, usually the list goes like frontline soldier. So like all professions you can have. Yeah. So first one is frontline soldier, as in like you are in war.
Right.
Then it's usually policeman or fireman.
Right.
So either or. So these are like jobs where you put your life at risk.
Depending on the country, of course. In Finland.
But like global.
Of course.
And the fourth one kind of changes. Sometimes it's like a pilot job or then an ambulance driver or something like this. And the fifth one, basically 4 years in a row now, as being an event producer.
What? Really? Well, I can understand the stress, absolutely, of pulling something out, especially short notices as well.
You have a hard deadline.
Right.
It's like your guests are going to show up at that time.
Right.
And like there's so many uncontrollable factors. Yeah. There's like so much you can plan for.
Right.
So you have hard deadlines. You have a massively complex situation where you need to control human crowds.
Yes.
The bigger the events, the more the complex is. So I think this was the challenge, and I like these facts is only later on when I started doing this. I didn't know these facts.
Right.
I just enjoyed doing the work. So
later,
I kind of used these stories and these facts to somehow kind of verbalize why. And then when I learned about these, this study, it was kind of like, well, you can throw me into any other job, and if I can do this here, then I can probably survive in any type of office stuff. There's like not much you can throw at me that would be more stressful and more stressful environment. Other than, of course, like war and that kind of stuff, but it's not like something I would like to find myself.
Fantastic reference in that sense. But obviously, this led to your connection with Slush, right?
Yes. So I found Slush, basically I heard about it since most of my fellow students have been involved somehow.
Right.
2013 I saw some pictures and like at the time I heard about it the first time, I thought it was just a big party.
Right.
Because what I heard was that Supercell sponsors a lot of money to create a party with free booze.
Right.
And so
no startup included in the picture.
Nothing like that when I I first heard about
Right.
it. So I asked for an intro. I wanted to get involved from one of the guys I had kind of hired. So in between Slush and the student days, I did form my own company.
Yeah.
So I had a good friend.
Yeah.
He has the artist name by Ronnie Rex today.
Okay.
So he's a DJ. So at the time he was getting a lot of gigs. He needed some help. So I thought like, well, I'm not gonna get the summer job in the field of computer science.
Yeah.
My summer job up until the summer of 2013 was being a pool boy at this private club out in the archipelago of Inko. So I did that for 3 summers, best summer job ever.
Right.
You were there for a week to care the pool, and you were a week home, and you got like $2.5K in salary.
Wow.
For like a 20-year-old. It was
interesting. Yeah.
But I burned the money pretty fast.
Yeah.
Partying.
Right.
However, then this summer, 2013, I decided to help him. We set up our company. My first booking, if you will, for him was for a weekend festival.
Right.
So I thought, well, I could give this a shot.
Right.
So we spent the time kind of rebranding him that summer. I also got involved into a promoter, a guy called Lasse Laaksonen. He's basically the one who has run most of the kind of parties in Vegas places.
Right.
So he if you ever been to Kaivahuone on a Friday or a Saturday during the summer, it's most likely be one of his concerts. Okay. Right. So what I did for him, I helped him with the money and operating the parties. So I didn't come up with the concepts or anything. Right. But I didn't handle the crowd. I just like all operational stuff. Yeah. And handling the cash and
right. Okay.
So I was doing that. Also started doing that in the summer of 2013. And I got involved in Rami's other projects, such as a club called Floor Love, which was, I think that's where same year was awarded Best Club of the Year. Wow. From some competition or something. It was fun times, but mostly it cost me more than it made me anymore. Really, right? Yeah. But it was fun. And then,
but the experience was priceless in this sense.
You got to do some pretty cool stuff reflecting back, and it's like you can check some stuff out of your bucket list. From those times.
But take me to the Slush and you being there, and explain to our viewers what Slush is for those that don't know.
Yeah. So got into Slush, asked for an intro. So it took me 3 or 4 months to actually get involved now. So it was 2014 in the spring. I asked for the intro in like January or something. And then it took me 3 months. I got involved to a guy called Riku Mäkelä, who was COO at the time. He later became CEO, and he's now the COO of Volt.
Okay, right.
So, and he still sits in the board of Slush. So I come there, and then Riku was like, I'm still going there. We kind of know, I now knew that it had something to do with startups. It's not just the party, right? So he doesn't give me a brief on what like Slush is. What he starts talking about is like, so we've been an event only organized in Kaapelitehdasta. We're going to Messukeskus this year. And last year we realized that there's a lot of side events that are going to happen during Slush. And somebody needs to handle all of these side events. So like last year, the way they did the side events, not talking about the main after party sponsored by Supercell, but the other side events, they basically just sent out a Twitter tweet saying like, hey, let's meet at this bar in like an hour to the audience without planning anything. So they needed somebody to handle that. And then he starts explaining like, so you have this side event, that side event, that side event. And I haven't said pretty much anything during the first like 30 minutes. Just telling all of this, writing stuff down. And then he just goes, do you want to handle this? I was like, handle what? Well, these side events. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, is this a paid job? Is this a volunteer job? And then I was just like, whatever. I was thinking this and I said, okay, I'll handle it. What's the plan? I just wrote it down. So he had just like, that was the brief.
Yeah.
And then he took me and introduced me to the executive producer, one of the co-founders, Atte Hujanen.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, here's Nicky Atte, he's going to help you with stuff. And that's pretty much how I got involved.
Right.
But what I realized at the time, okay, so what Slush actually is and what it does, this is how you got involved with Slush back in the day. Before it was before it was something everybody knew, even if you weren't an entrepreneur or within the scene. This is how you got involved. Now, like, everybody knows.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like the world's leading startup event this year. I think they're gonna have 25,000 attendees.
Crazy,
from over 150 countries.
Yeah,
it's once a year here in Helsinki, but there's also events in Tokyo, Shanghai, and Singapore. The mission of Slush is to help the next groundbreaking founders forward. So that's like whatever within that space. That helps it. The main product is basically a matchmaking tool you can get access to during the event, where investors can set up meetings with startups and you can chat with each other. So that's the main thing. Then on the top of it, you bring in like world-renowned like founders or whatever. We've had everything from royalty to the CEO of Spotify to Al Gore and so on. So we had a lot of different like big name speakers.
4,000 startups, 2,000 investors. Huge.
Those were the numbers last year.
Last
so
year,
up until 2013, it had doubled in size. 2014, they didn't double in size. We didn't double in size. We had a bit smaller crowd. Because after a certain point, there's like just like you don't want to get just more and more people. You want to have the right people. So like being bigger wasn't the end goal anymore. When I got involved. So I came in, titled head of parties, volunteer. That same year, I was still playing first division basketball. I was running my own company within the event business. I did half a year worth of studies that same fall. So it was like a super intense, like very productive. I don't know how I did it. Like still looking back, it's like how did I fit everything like that into like less than a year? But it just sucked in because like what I liked about Slush, the same feeling kind of was like I felt I belonged somewhere. Which was the same as when I went to play basketball. I felt welcome. And there's a lot of like cool people. And then even at Slush more than in basketball, like these people were like thinking about really big stuff. And they didn't seem to mind the fact that they were just 23, 24, 25-year-olds wanting to do stuff.
But how did you find yourself in the president role, the role of the president?
I think I just did stuff right. I mean, it went
from planning parties to president.
Well, I mean, so the way Slush is set up, so everything, marketing, concept, sales, program, kind of workforce, volunteer, like the whole HR part, whatever. So that's run by a group of students. Most of them are students. Some of them might be, entrepreneurs or whatnot, but like people still doing their studies. And the average age, usually from year to year, is about 25. And it's a non-profit, so it's like non-profit in the sense it's owned by a foundation, which the foundation's goal is to help entrepreneurs in whatever way possible, and mainly in the Nordic region, but never actually scoped that out. And what then kind of together with that, you have the event professionals. So an event production company called Sun Effects. So they basically are the ones who produce Lux, Flow. They're involved in most of the other big festivals. So the team of producers that produce Slush is actually the same guys that do most of all big festivals in Finland. And they're a conglomerate, and Sun Effects is born out of lighting design. That's their expertise. which then kind of you can see in slush and everything that's produced. So
definitely.
the setup we had was basically, think of it as you would have startups that is run mostly by 25-year-olds.
Right.
But all of the coding is done by senior freelancers that form a collective that do coding because they love to code.
Right.
And they like the cause.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So then the slush team had always one executive producer, or has an executive producer. Now the setup is a bit different since it's a lot bigger. But at the time, the co-founder who brought in sound effects, Artte Huijanen, was the executive producer. So he coordinated most of all work of the event professionals and ensured the communication.
Yeah.
And there weren't much other people who knew anything about events as such.
Right.
So you could say in a startup, you're talking about a head of product.
Gotcha.
And as the head of product, your job was to lead the people creating or building the product and ensuring communication with the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
So when I was constantly there at the office. I just asked for more stuff I could help with. I ended up, that year I got involved, I ended up also handling all of the food trucks that were in there. Right. So basically I had something to do like 24/7 during the event, like some sort of responsibility.
Yeah.
I after that year, and I still had the habit, I would go and sleep at Messukeskus on the floor on a mattress like 7 days before.
Right.
And I would not go home to sleep before like 3 days down the tear down.
Wow.
So I would spend like 10 days or something sleeping on the floor of Messukeskus.
Wow. And you guys did that as a group, or?
Well, I mean, most people came there for some, but I was like as the producer, and since for the production team, the event starts long before the first guests come in the venue, and it ends only when the last trucks has left the venue. So I kind of felt the responsibility to be present for all of that.
And I like the idea how you starting off partying and then being involved in the event management business has actually led you to this point where you're running the not only the parties but then event producing basically for Slush and leading to that role. Now, how do you transition from Slush to Smartly?
Well, there's still an in between there, which is like I was the executive producer in 2015, but in 2016 I also became acting president of Slush. Right. So kind of co-CEO, vice CEO, whatever. Right. So together with Marianne, who became CEO, we kind of led the group together. Right. At that point, I started asking myself, like, I was leading a product. And it was easy to lead because I had the best expertise in Finland. Right. Kind of, I didn't go there and tell them how to do their job. Right. My approach was like, teach me. Right. And then give me opportunities to learn. So I also did Tikkurila Festival that summer. I was the producer of that just to get that exercise done. Right. Like I had no clue what it means to be a producer. Yeah. And I had to learn really, really, really fast. But luckily I had a group of like very smart people who knew the job, so I could learn fast. Yeah. And then basically the same thing happened when I was selected to be president or like vice CEO or whatnot. So what does it mean to lead? I had like actually no clue. Right. And now I'm the guy that when all else fails, like they need to come to me, and then am I supposed to have an answer? Right. Like what do I know about leadership, like actually. Right. So this was the time I could combine my studies in computer science with what I was doing at Slush. I got interested in like self-organizing organizations and agile work. Right. So the question I had, why can't you do agile in any organization, regardless of industry? And basically Slush was a testing ground. So you could scale the organization from 30 people to 2,500 every year, and you could do that not only in Helsinki, you could do it in Shanghai, Singapore, and you need to do that global. So it was like everything. It was like sucking in stuff I was learning at school and from books, and then I got to actually test that at the same time. Good point. Yeah. So this led me to like, what does leadership mean in an organization where you pay nobody any salaries, basically? Well, those who do it year round, they are employed and they get like something so that they don't have to worry about rent and other benefits. but it's like you don't motivate people with money.
Right.
So how do you do it?
Right.
And then secondly, how do you organize those 2,500 so that everybody appears to know what they're actually doing?
Right.
Right? And then leading a 30-person group is very different from leading like 2,500. So you need to kind of practice changing your style from like one to one to one to many.
Right.
And how do you set that up?
Right.
And then basically I did everything there was to do at Slush. Like I could have been like CEO, but it wouldn't probably have changed much.
The role. Yeah.
The role.
Yeah.
My firstborn, my son was born the second day of Slush.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a hectic year, but I still did 1 year after that. So with my son. So I promised my wife I wouldn't travel, because at the time I had done travels like 250 days or 18 months or something.
Right.
It was very hectic. When I was born, I was there. Yeah. And to ensure that the next kind of generation knows how to build it. So when we go away with Marianne, like there's somebody there to pick it up, if you will.
Very nice. Yeah.
So I started asking, and I also was able to complete all my studies. So when I got involved in Slush, I had half of my degree done.
Right.
Like as in like I still had like 1/3 of my bachelor's degree and my whole master's undone. So during all my time doing it Slush, I also completed my master's.
Oh, all right.
So I got my papers out in the end of 2017, and that fall I started asking myself, so I'm gonna leave Slush. Like I will have to find a job. Like it's not like I can just hang around. Like, I need to get paid January 18th, and I can't be paid by Slush because that won't be a very smart way of going about things. Right. So I started asking, where do I want to go? And so self-organization, leadership. So I didn't regard myself like as an event producer. What I was doing was organizing people. Right. Basically. Yeah. Because the people make the event. The event doesn't make itself. Yeah. So it was about how do you. Yeah. Which perhaps leads me to this next question about having an organization like Smartly. You can tell us a bit more what Smartly is, but then being able to be in that environment where there is a 60 to 100% growth, right, almost every year, and the diversity of the staff as well. Take us through what it is like to be in that kind of environment. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it was much different from what we saw at Slush, like as a challenge, like truly. Right. Like it's different as in there's some compliance issues and you're paying people and more intricacies. Right. When you boil it down to what it actually is, it's just the same sort of scaling exercise with people with a lot of diversity. Right. You still need to motivate them with a mission and a purpose. And you need to have a strong culture, and how people operate is not very different.
What do you think is the biggest challenge, though, in trying to get this diverse team to work?
You need a sense of belonging.
Right.
So I don't like the word diversity because any group that is truly inclusive will inherently be diverse. Right. So if you are being inclusive, as in like you mind which language you speak, you mind that people come from different cultures, you don't judge people because they are, you understand what your own biases are and how they affect how you interact with others. Right. Then when that is happening, then it automatically just becomes diverse. Right. Because if you're measuring diversity in numbers, in my mind, you're doing it wrong. Because it doesn't tell you anything about how people actually feel about being part of that group. Good point. It just tells you there's a group of very different people. Right. But it doesn't tell you anything about how productive they are, how they feel about interacting with different individuals. Yeah. Do they feel they belong to this group even though they're put a number on how they are different? Yeah, or at least what does the difference mean? Because even though we might put a wording around it, it might be different for everybody. Yeah. Right. So that's a very, very good point in that. I want to change this discussion a little bit because something I always find very interesting is seeing people talk about what makes them proud. What would you say that is for you? I don't know. I mean, I'm usually like get a sense of pride when you've been able to find a problem worth solving or a challenge that is big enough and it's hard.
Right.
And it's like it shouldn't come easy. So if I reflect back in school, school was easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I didn't feel any sense of pride of getting like straight A's or anything like that at the time I was in elementary school, because I didn't actually have to work for it. And then I was also very good at hacking human systems. So like I'm kind of a white hacker of human systems. If there's a system put in place, like say like reading for a test, I was like extremely good at like also cheating when I needed to. Like when I didn't do enough studies, I would find a way to like cheat, right?
My university coach used to say, "Win means do whatever is necessary." So that's what you used to do.
Like, well, it's not me. It's like if you make it easy, and that's not gonna tell you what I actually know. So I'm kind of rebellious in that sense. It even is far like that. That's for all the other people listening. I've managed to game my university physics teacher to have a 3-point competition with me, where the prize was everybody in the class would get the questions for the exam before the exam if I win.
And they agreed to that.
Yes.
Interesting.
And we had that competition.
Wow.
It's a different story though. But just the example of like I would find a way to game the system if it has been set up.
Right. In that sense, so how do you see success?
So like a challenge that is actually hard for me, like truly hard for me to do, and I'm able to get a group to complete it. And in the end of the day, when you look from it the outside, people wouldn't actually know it's like what my input has been, but others get the glory from the work.
Right.
And I feel pride when all of the people getting the glory know how I contributed to it.
Right.
So that's when like most of my successes is how I around that.
Right.
I don't feel I feel bothered by the fact that say I've achieved something and everybody knows it was me, and then say somebody with a status kind of congratulates me on accomplishing something I only did.
Right.
Even though that might be hard, there's a couple of cases where this has happened, but I still I don't get a sense of pride out of that particularly.
From the outside looking in, I would say that's a very Finnish trait to have, being, in the background, not wanting to show off in that sense, or.
But it's a dichotomy for me, because I usually also find myself being there, because what usually happens then in my leadership roles is like you need to be present,
right,
and you need to be there for the people, and sometimes they want to see you there.
Yeah, true.
There are times where I actually enjoy being in the public eye, but mostly I feel bothered in retrospect about what I've said or what I've been there.
Right.
And I don't get, like in the long run, I don't get a sense of pride out of those things.
So if success to you means achieving something great whilst being in the background, helping other people to be at their best, how would you view failure?
Failure, well, kind of the classic, most people kind of say this as well, like I have a hard time, you asked me earlier, what is my biggest failures? It was hard for me to come up with the situations, because I don't label what other labels as failure. It's about learning. Right. This is the classical stuff, like failure, you always learn. But in my mind, it's like, yes, some people might have failed, but I've also myself think that I've succeeded in something when other people see that as a failure in other respects. Right. And this is something you learn being a leader in your position. You think you've done something right, and half of the group is like happy and think it's a success, but the rest of the half
Yeah.
might not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is kind of the dichotomy there.
Yeah.
It's like, depending on who you ask, you've either failed or succeeded.
Right.
But what everybody can agree on, if you want to be inclusive, it's like, regardless if it was a success or failure, we learn something.
What's the learning lesson?
And then learning is something that happens within me, not maybe, you can't control what others learn, but I know what I've learned from whatever I've done.
Yeah, I love this Steve Jobs quote saying that you can always connect the dots looking backwards. And I think that's how I see success as well, that, failure. That when you look back, all these things that other people might have deemed failure are exactly the things that actually propel you to that next level. But then you can only do that looking backwards.
Yeah, it's easy to be right in retrospect.
Yeah, but what would you say your biggest lesson has been?
Well, out of the things that kind of failed or whatnot. So we did this thing called slush music.
Yeah,
It was a brainchild.
I think I've been charged for slush music before, and I shouldn't have been. I shouldn't have been charged. I need my money back, slush people. Right.
We can talk about this later. But, so it was kind of a brainchild of mine. Like, we needed to test our new verticals or whatnot. So originally the idea was to do a slush event for the creative industries, not only music. So I concepted this thing where you would do a side event for anybody who's an entrepreneur in the creative business, including design, including music. You know, because we weren't involved in this crowd. And then the first year we tried kind of concepting it, that didn't happen. The following year we're like, okay, like now we need to do something different. What would be new? So we started like slush music. I called up the guys. I talked about the music part the year before, which was a group called HNMKY Finland, and it's basically, well, they're not 4 co-owners, but the personality is there. Roope Salminen, TV show host, most people know, and then Kalle Lindroth, he's a singer-songwriter, he has a duo act, and he also writes most of the songs for the likes of Isaac Elliott, Aki Tuisku, and so on. And then the third guy is Sasu Paakkunainen, who has a background in theater. And they go way back. They had this company that they just did stuff the same way I did stuff from my company, sold my services. So together with them, we set up like slush music. They brought the music industry, we brought the slush. And it ended up kind of not breaking even for 2 years. And it was really hard to get it to where it should have been. And it was hard to integrate the music team with the rest of the slush team. So what I regard as a failure is like, we didn't get it off, but more importantly, in the end of the day, unlike anything else I'd done for slush, like the people who were doing it didn't feel like it was everybody's project. It was like my project. So it was the cardinal sin of highly effective teams, which was like inattention to results. So even though you're doing something that is big and great, it might not be contributing to the overarching goal. Truly. Like, there were arguments for, but like I just like failed to get that integrated and for it to live on beyond like what I wanted it to be.
Okay. So from all these experiences and knowing that when you were 16 or 18, let's go back to 16. When you were 16, you wanted to be a professional basketball player. And looking at your path and where it got you, what would you say to your 18-year-old self, looking back, or 16-year-old self in a sense, since you were thinking you'll be a professional basketball player? Like,
I don't think I would tell me anything. It was like, let's have a chat in 10 years.
Like your dad did.
I mean, I don't think, knowing myself, it's like, you can't really tell me what to do. I will still do whatever, and then like, even like I would just be annoyed by somebody like telling what to do. I would just like, what I still do and what I do with others is like, I and this is a practice I started only when I became like got a responsible role. I try to ask more questions. It's like because if you want to inspire other people, it never starts with telling them anything.
Exactly.
It's like you can never like you can motivate people by telling them stuff, but if you want to inspire people, inspiring is about getting somebody to do just something.
Exactly.
So you need to be curious. You want to hear more about others than you want to talk about yourself or so on. So I would spend more time because I didn't feel outside of my parents maybe, but I never actually felt I've ever met somebody who actually gets me.
Right.
Other than my maybe wife.
Yeah.
But that's also arguable.
But right.
So like I would have just wanted, to meet somebody who was curious as to like what I want to do and why I want to do it.
Right.
And then kind of not either encourage me or disencourage me, just being curious about what I'm going through.
Yeah. Help you process it in your own mind.
Yeah.
Perhaps. For every successful person, there are routines they develop. And I just wonder, what are these routines for you? What are these things that help you?
So I don't talk about routines, I talk about habits, and I try to identify habits.
Right.
And I'm very avid. I tell myself I don't like habits.
Right.
And I'm not a person who likes a routine, that I need creativity. But those habits exist in everything we do. It's like when somebody says something, your reaction to something is always the same. That's a habit. Like, the choices you make are habits. So when you think about goals, for example. So kind of the way I now work with this is like, if there's something I want to be or somewhere I want to go or something I want to achieve. So I don't look at what is the outcome. It's like I try to not visualize, but imagine or think of like, how should I behave on a day-to-day basis at that time?
Right.
Like, what are the behaviors I exemplify every day or like on a continuous basis? And then I probably find some stuff that there are stuff I need to change today in order for maximize the potential of X, Y, and Z happening.
Right.
So take for example, before I got into Smartly, the goal I set for myself was 5 years from now, I want to be the name you want to ask how to build an organization if you want to scale it from 10 people to 500 in the Nordics. So the name that comes in the conversation when you want to do this.
Right.
Then what does that actually mean? What should I be doing in order to do that? So I need to work with like organization that scales fast. I think the human side of it is the bigger problem. Nobody knows how to scale the people side. Right? Many know how to scale a product and get the consumers. There's a lot of knowledge there, even though it's not shared. There's some good people there, but nobody knows how to scale the people stuff. And then thirdly, I need to be actively reading about the subject. So I have a habit of like reading one book on the subject every week.
Every week.
Well, today it's about listening to books.
Of course.
Good weeks I do 2 books. But like very minimum 1 book a week, and I listen to it when I exercise. And that was another habit thing. It's like, how do I find the time to do this? And then I also want to be a healthy individual and so on. So I took a look at what I was already doing. So on a weekly basis I was running, so it's pretty easy to add another habit I want to see like on top of that. So now whenever I go and run, I always put my headphones on and I'm listening to a book. And when I hear something of interest, I take my phone up and I write a note. And then usually like a week or 2 weeks, like whenever I finish the next book, I go back 1 book to look at what were the notes I wrote down for myself and then why.
Nice. That's
there
pretty.
Was something of interest. It's like I maybe actually catch like half of what the book covers, but I know from which book to look from which subject, and I can like find narratives.
Go back,
and mostly it's about topics of leadership, like performance, organizational design, strategy. Those are the subjects I read because that's what I need in order to reach that goal. So I don't, even though I set a goal, it's like what habits do I need to change in order to maximize the...
So a couple of questions with this. Since you had the 5-year goal and you're 2 years into it, right, with Smartly, where are you? Are you on track? And
well, I mean, I kept up with my habits.
Right.
I don't measure like that's a goal I can't define like whether or not I've reached it or not. It just gives me a direction.
Gotcha. It's like the northern
the way
lights.
you find this out is like go and ask people in the SARC community. Like, is Nikki a person who you would ask about this scaling stuff?
Right. Yeah.
That's how you would know where I'm at.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I get approached by a few people here and there, especially on the people subject and on the subject of leadership. I get approached, but I don't know. And frankly, I don't really care.
Yeah.
In the end, because the reason I said it was not to achieve it; it was to get a sense of direction.
Gotcha. Right.
You don't set goals because. Well, I don't set goals.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I don't set goals in order to assess whether or not I get there.
Right.
It's just
want to be on the path.
Yeah. So you get where what do I need to do, and how should I spend my time in order to maximize the likelihood of I maybe getting there?
Yeah, which is a major thing, just being able to have that direction, especially in this current world we live in, where the distractions are too many. But sure.
And it also helps you in saying no.
Right.
Because whenever you are a doer and people know you get stuff done, they will start asking you for X, Y, and Z.
It's a skill. Yeah.
So you need to be able to kind of say no, but still in a respectful way, because people might get upset that you are not helping them or you're not getting involved with what they do or so on. But like when you have a sense of direction and you know why you make the choices you do, it's easier for people to understand. It's not because of who they are, what they're doing. It's just because it doesn't fit your path. Yeah,
but speaking back on this idea of the weekly books that you read, which is very impressive. Which one would you say, or ones would you say have been so influential in the way that you work or building up these habits?
Earlier, one is, so the one that got me like the aha moment for like self-organizing stuff was Reinventing Organizations by Pierre Jallow. So that was when I was asking like, can any organization in any industry operate in an agile, self-organized way? And the book said like, yes, it can. Here are the examples. So that was one book. And then the second, about the topic of leadership and coaching and most of the stuff I do now, the book that I found, I heard about this, or like I read about this guy a lot. He's mentioned in every single biography of the big guys. So, and a guy named Bill Campbell. So, like, if you look at the biographies of like Jeff Bezos and like Bill Gates, and Andres, and so Ben Horowitz, the guy who wrote Hard Things About Hard Things. So when you look at it, they say thank you to Bill Campbell, and it's like his name keeps coming up. Like, who is this guy? You Google him, you don't find really much. And now this spring they released a book. It's called The $1 Trillion Coach. So he's the guy who has coached Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Ben Horowitz, like most of everybody in Silicon Valley, and he's commonly known as the coach. So he only started in tech at the age of 35. Up until that point, he was an American football coach, and he got into marketing. He worked for Fujitsu, I think it was, for 5 years within marketing. And then he got recruited by Bill Scully, who became CEO of Apple when Jobs left Apple. And Jobs was still around at the beginning of Campbell's career. And Bill Campbell, so he's the guy behind that iconic TV commercial in the Super Bowl in the 80s where there's a woman that throws the sledgehammer. So apparently the story goes like his team came up with that idea, the board, and Scully said, no way are you going to air that. And he said, fuck it, do it anyway. and that became the biggest hit.
Right.
Like, and nobody knows it was
Yeah.
like he who kind of pushed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of in that book on like how he coached, like what his methodology was,
Right.
who he was,
Right.
how he interacted with people.
Yeah.
And I think the most kind of inspiring thing was, so he died last year, I think it was. So for his funeral, more than 2,500 people showed up without an invite.
Right.
And people were everything from like his old high school football players who were
Right.
sitting next to the CEOs of Google.
Right.
And like
Interesting.
everybody kind of knew him as
Right.
a friend,
Yeah.
even though, and the sheer amount of people that
Yeah.
showed up.
I can see your affinity towards him because it's the kind of similar thing, leading from the background.
Yeah, he never wanted to be in the spotlight.
Right.
So he was the CEO of Intuit that created this product called TurboTax, the most used like tax planning system.
Right.
So he was there he was CEO of that for like 10 years or something,
Yeah.
and then he was on the board, and when he got to the board of Intuit, this was in the beginning of the 2000s, that's when he started his coaching career.
Right. So now that you've mentioned this or brought in this topic of death, I have one final question for you. Looking at what you've been able to achieve so far, what would you think your legacy would be today? And this question is in two parts. And the second part would be, what would you want it to be, you know,
Yeah,
30,
so
40,
far,
50?
I mean, I don't know, but people remember me with a sense of integrity. That, and then that every interaction I have kind of has some sort of value, and I think I fail more on that than I would like to, because I meet a lot of people, and one thing that I need to get better at is like remembering the names when you meet a new person. It's like super hard. I'm still practicing, but like kind of leaving every interaction that people feel it had some sort of value, because then it's time well spent.
Right.
And time is the only resource we all have, a limited amount of, that we can't control and can't be taken away from us.
Right.
So how we spend our time is like, with time you can make money. Like you can go and work for something and get money out of the time you use, or you can use time to acquire knowledge from which you make money. So time is like, that's the key. So when I use others people's time, I do it respectfully, regardless of who they are. My time is not more important than your time.
Right.
So kind of that is something I would hope that I would be remembered for. And then secondly, it's like, while I do all of this, so like always find myself with these big challenges or these big problems, and then you need to save the world kind of stuff.
Right.
But still, in the end of the day, that like my kids would remember as me being around.
Yeah.
So I just don't spend time like running around with other people.
Yeah.
There's some people who like actually need to be at home.
Exactly, right.
So the kids to remember me as just some dude. who's
Exactly,
somewhere all the
right,
time, but-
right.
So and that's a hard thing to make work. And
Exactly.
That's a challenge.
Fantastic thought. Final thoughts from the man who is in the 40 under 40 Finnish Swedish speakers in Finland, who's doing amazing things, and I am sure in a few years, 3 years, he would be the name to go to when you think about scaling your company from 5 or 10 to 500. It's been a pleasure, man. Great seeing you and good talking to you.
Likewise.
Yeah.